Hey guys, so I've been wanting to do this video for a really long time, and there've been a ton of people asking on the comments, like what cameras do you guys use? What's the best camera for weddings? Is it this camera or that camera? So I'm gonna tell you guys what I personally believe are the best cameras for a wedding. And I have them right here. I'm gonna be talking about them. And I want you guys to remember that, the camera is just a tool that you use. It's all about the story. That's the main thing. Don't get caught up on the 6K, 4K, or image stabilization, or all these things that the companies try to sell you on. It's really about story first. So any piece of gear that you buy, remember that you want to make your decision based on, will this allow me to focus on the couple more and focus on the story more? And one of our favorite cameras, this is our main workhorse camera that we use 90% of the wedding day, is the C100 Mark I and Mark II. Just look at this thing. It's like an absolute beast. When we show up to a wedding, I just feel so awesome. And yeah, it is a little bit bigger, but it really, in my mind, encapsulates what it means to put story first in your gear purchases. And the things that allow me to put story first, and really there's so many incredible features about this camera. This could be an hour-long video. And I really just want to give you guys an overview of the key things that really make the difference in our weddings and why we chose this camera. So I'll have the links to this camera below so you can find out all the little features. There's videos everywhere else online that really get into the nitty-gritty, but there's not a video that really talks about why this camera is perfect for weddings specifically. So that's what I'm gonna do. So first off is the battery life. Now this is the battery that they take. You can film an entire wedding day on 2 batteries. That's crazy. Coming from DSLRs where I remember having to carry 20 batteries. I start the day off with 1 battery in here, 1 battery in my bag, and I don't even use the second battery until toast at the reception. This is why I love this camera. And it allows me to put story first because I'm not worrying about, oh my gosh, am I running out of battery? It never happens in between a letter reading or a groom's interview where the battery dies and bam, there's the story. I never ever have to worry about battery life, and that allows me to put story first. And one of the main things with cameras, and I'm not like a technical person. I actually really dislike reading all the little technical details, knowing every little thing about the camera, because I'm a storyteller first, and I want the camera to completely fade out of the way so I can literally just be focused on the story. And this camera does that. And the first way it does it, so the battery life, I never have to worry about changing the battery. And then the other thing is this camera can record, I can put one 64GB card in this camera and record an entire wedding day on 1 card. I don't even fill up the whole 64GB card. And that's because this camera records such small file sizes that you never have to worry about changing it. So that's another thing. Remember when you had to, on other cameras, do the whole day on multiple cards and you're switching them out and cards are getting lost and you're worrying about it? You don't have to. And okay, this is gonna blow your guys' mind. So, as far as I know, again, one of the only cameras that does this really well. It has dual card slots. And what that means is you can put 2 identical 32GB cards in these slots, and as you're filming, it's recording the footage on both of those cards simultaneously. So that way, if one of your card gets corrupted, which happens all the time, I cannot tell you how many times I've heard horror stories from filmmakers shooting a whole day, getting back, putting their SD card in their computer, and it being corrupted. There's the whole day. There's the whole groom prep, the toast, the speeches, all gone. But now, because there's 2 SD card slots, 1 card gets corrupted, you have a dual backup on the other card. So nice for shooting weddings. And again, shooting the whole day on 1 card allows you to put story first, not worry about card or battery. Another thing I love is this articulating screen. A lot of cameras have it now. They have the articulating screen, but I just love it so much. It allows you to get high shots and you can put the camera screen angle down and it allows you to get low shots. It's an awesome screen. I love that. Another is this camera has built-in ND filters. So basically what ND filters are sunglasses for your camera. So it allows you to control the light coming into your camera apart from adjusting ISO and things like that. Also love that. Another thing is just the ergonomics. This camera feels really solid and weighty in your hand, and You never feel like you're holding a toy, and I just really love that about this camera. It's it's a personal preference, but I love that about this camera. And another thing that this camera is really incredible at is it has built-in focus peaking, and what that is when you turn it on, it actually allows you to see all the in focus areas highlighted in red. So you can really easily see what's in focus and what's out of focus, and you can zoom in and check your focus while you're recording. And again, that makes telling your stories that much easier because you don't have to stop recording while you're checking focus. And I just absolutely love that. And another thing is it doesn't have a recording limit. So for things like ceremonies, you can have this as a back camera or as a VAL camera, and it is just cranking. You're never worrying about a recording limit. Another really cool feature is that there's so many customizable buttons. And so if you can see on the side of this, there's a ton of buttons, and you can customize each and every one, and it makes it really easy on the wedding day to be able to just boop, 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 and get exactly where you need to be. And then another thing I really love about these cameras for weddings, so this is the Mark I, and I'm filming with the Mark II. So actually my favorite camera is the Mark II, but we have both of them because they're really similar. The Mark I's a little cheaper, and what I would recommend to people just starting out, get the Mark I first. You'll have no regrets. You can get them for so cheap now, totally worth it, and then upgrade to the Mark II later on. But the Mark I and the Mark II, image quality is impeccable, love them. The main difference between the Mark II is that it has slow motion, and the image quality is just a little better. The Mark I does not have slow motion, unfortunately, and I love that the Mark II does because we shoot on slow motion all the time during the wedding day, and I love that, using slow motion for weddings. And the Mark I tends to be a little bit noisier in terms of the image quality than the Mark II, so that's another reason I kind of recommend the Mark II. And also the Mark I, the screen is not as good as on the Mark II. So again, these little things, but I'd say the biggest thing is the image quality tends to be slightly better in the Mark II than on the Mark I, and the Mark II has a slow motion. So if you can and you can afford it, get the Mark II. And then lastly, the final kind of just thing I absolutely love about these cameras, or two things. One is the image quality out of the camera looks so good. Like, it gets skin tones right, and it just tends to be warmer, like Canon's colors. This is again a preference thing. I love the tones, how it represents color, and I don't have to do a lot of work in post to change the color out of the camera. It gives a very authentic color. It's just warm and homey, which for Forestry Films, that's kind of the tones that we love to bring out in our films. So I love that. And then also, the low light performance in these cameras are amazing. Like the C100 Mark I could push it to about, I don't know, 5,000, 6,000 ISO and not have an ounce of noise. Whereas the Mark II, I can push it to upwards of 12,000 ISO and not see any noise. The fact that the noise or the ISO, you can pump it so high without any noise, comes in handy so much for dancing, or for portraits. And for dancing, you can crank the ISO up so high and use a tiny little light that's not disrupting people dancing. It's not like this big bright light in their face, but crank the ISO up and you could be like a little ninja on the dance floor without having to bring these big lights. Love that you can do that. Or for portrait sessions when, around the winter time when the light starts to go down sooner, and in my mind, like some of the best portraits are when the sun is pretty much set, and most cameras, they can't even film that because it's so dark. But when you are able to crank the ISO up on these cameras, you can actually be filming portraits when it's pretty much dark outside, but you can still get incredible portraits. So it allows you, again, to put story first in terms of never having anything stopping you from telling an incredible story on the wedding day. So these are the C100 Mark I and Mark II. I would recommend both of them. If you have the money, get the Mark II. If you don't have the money and you're just starting out, get the Mark I. And our absolute favorite wedding cameras. I just absolutely love them. And then we use two other cameras on the wedding day, and I won't go as in depth with these. All you guys can look them up kind of on your own. But we use the Sony A6300. You can see that right here. Love this camera. We use this as kind of like a gimbal camera. And so on our glide cam or on our gimbal, we'll use this camera. And what's really great about this camera, key features, is it's really light and really tiny, so you can use it on a handheld gimbal. It's 4K, which is really great, and it's just a solid camera, and you can kind of look more into it on your own. This is the Sony A6300, and it has decent colors and image quality. You got to do a little tweaking in post, but I'd love if the C100 was this small and I could mount it on a handheld gimbal, but I can't. And the other camera I'd look at is the Sony A6500. It has image stabilization built into the camera. It's like the same camera, but just with image stabilization. If I were to buy this again, I'd probably get that one since I'm mainly using this on a handheld gimbal, and any type of internal stabilization on a handheld gimbal helps a ton. Another cool thing about this camera is it actually takes incredible pictures. So it's a great family camera. Like, it's actually our main family camera that we use when we go on vacations or little adventures, and we just take pictures, and we're gonna use when we have kids, and I love it. And whereas the C100, it doesn't take pictures. So it kind of fit two purposes. I needed a cool gimbal camera, and I convinced my wife to buy it because it took good family pictures. So if you guys need to have a reason to buy another camera, just say, hey, honey, like, takes great family pictures. Anyways, we'll do a whole nother video about how to convince your spouse to let you buy camera stuff, but we'll get to that later. So, and a third camera we use is the Panasonic G7. Now this one is like just a great third camera if you need it. So we actually shoot our wedding ceremonies with 4 cameras. We have a C100 Mark I, C100 Mark II, we have the Sony A6300 on a gimbal, and then we have this camera in the back as, you know, our back camera. And this camera is so cheap. It's the Panasonic G7. It's 4K. It's, I think you can get it for like $500 with a lens, and it has the articulating screen, which I love. The image quality is really solid. It has good picture profiles built in. It has a 30-minute recording limit, so it's, you know, it's not as good as the C100 with no recording limit, but it's a great third camera if you, I mean, it's so cheap. It's basically, that's the reason we bought it. I mean, it has a bunch of other cool features that you can look up online, but the main reason we bought it is it's a 4K camera for $500. We needed a back camera. This is an absolute solid one. So one of the only bummers with the Sony camera, the A6300, is it does overheat. And so it's not a really good back camera. That's why I'd recommend the model right above this one, the A6500, which has the image stabilization and it doesn't overheat. And that's another thing you want to look at. You don't want a camera that overheats. The C100s don't overheat, another reason I love them. And then the Panasonic G7 also doesn't overheat, so it's a great back camera. But those are the main workhorse cameras that, you know, we use. Again, this is a quick overview. I could have done an hour-long video on each one of these cameras and their features, and I might do that, you know, in a video coming up, but I just wanted to give you guys a quick overview. I've put links to all these cameras and where you can buy them. And if you buy any of these cameras through the links below, we actually get, you know, a little bit of a kickback from Adorama or Amazon or B&H, so we'd really appreciate if you are gonna buy them, to buy them through our links, because it just helps the channel, it helps us make more videos like this. And also, we've created this whole brand new ebook. It's 10 things to know before you're shooting a wedding. So say if you have a wedding in 2 days, you know, or even you have a wedding tomorrow or in 2 weeks, I've kind of put the main things to know and to look out for before your next wedding. So this will help you just crush your next wedding. It kind of has some essential tips that I think are vitally important before filming any wedding. So be sure to click the link in the card above or in the description below, and it'll take you to a place to download that free ebook. Well, I hope this was really helpful for you guys. Please subscribe to this channel for more videos like this, and like this video if this was really helpful for you guys. And feel free to leave comments. I'll do my absolute best to respond to all the comments. If you had any questions about the C100, the A6300, or the Panasonic G7, please ask them in the comments. I'll do my very best to respond to all of them, and I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. See ya.